welcome everyone who's just joining. We'll give it a couple of minutes. There is a slide on your screen, hopefully, just explaining how this webinar will work. We're here for the next hour or so, and we are focusing on livestock and grassland, the offer that's available now, and what there is to come. We've also got a very special guest today who I've just seen has joined, Matthew Cole, who is a livestock farmer, and he will be sharing some of his experience with his SFI agreement midway through our presentation. Just give it a couple more seconds, make sure everyone's here who wants to be, and then we'll start. There is a quick opening survey. If you've got a chance, I'll pop it in the chat. It just helps us understand how you're feeling and what you know before the webinar. And then I'll share another survey at the end just to check to see how you feel the webinar has helped. I'll pop the survey in the chat now. Right, I think the attendee numbers are stabilising, so welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're here for the next hour or so, and we are going to talk through the livestock and grassland offer, particularly what's available now, what funding you can access now. My name's Becky and I work in the engagement team, but we've got quite a lot of support from DEFRA policy teams, animal health and welfare, and our PA today in this session, and we hope to answer as many questions as possible when we get towards when we finish the presentation today. I did mention this a moment ago, but for those of you that have just joined, we've got a very special guest today, Matthew Cole. He is a livestock farmer, and he is going to be sharing some of his experience with applying for SFI as well. So welcome everyone. I will hand over to our first speaker, Andrea, who works on SFI policy. But just to remind everyone, I will put a link in the chat. Any questions that you have, please do put on Slido so we can keep a track, and you can also vote the questions that you really want answering, and we'll try and get through them all today. Andrea, do you want to take over?
Yes, thanks. So do you want to move on to the next slide? And do you want to skip to the next one? So hi, as Becky said, my name's Andrea, and I work in the ELM team, specifically working on in the team that works on developing the content for SFI and CS actions. So we will continue to support farmers to do what they do best, and that's produce food hand in hand with preserving the diversity and abundance of nature. We want to give farmers more money, more choice, and more trust. And we recently set out the biggest upgrades of farming schemes since the transition started. We in government need to step up, and this means enabling farmers to have resilient businesses, produce the food our nation needs, and also to protect and enhance the natural environment and improve animal welfare. So we have three goals. Firstly, we'll support farmer-led innovation and improvements to agricultural productivity so we can maintain domestic food production at its current level of 60%. Secondly, if we want farming and food production to be resilient and sustainable over the long term, then farming and nature must go hand in hand. You can produce quality food at a profit with strong yields by farming with nature instead of against it. And finally, working in partnership with farmers, vets, and the wider industry in the supply chain through the animal health and welfare pathway will support continual improvements in farm animal health and welfare. There might be sometimes more emphasis on one of these areas than other in a particular grant or scheme, but we have designed all of our new policies and schemes with all of these three goals in mind. Next slide, please, Becky. The most important changes we're making are about how we work with farmers. We're treating farmers with respect and fairness. We want farmers to see DEFRA the way you might see a vet or other trusted advisor, people who understand and respect your work. We want you to be able to trust and rely on us. And we know that's not how things have operated in the past, but we've already started to improve our approach. So we're also improving the way we set out control the rules, making regulation fair, proportionate, and effective. So for farming regulation, we'll radically simplify guidance, reducing duplication and ensuring a more user-friendly experience for our customers. We'll be fair and proportionate by using more warning letters where there is no risk to public or animal health or damage to the environment, rather than automatic default to payment reduction. And we'll make it easier for inspectors to signpost customers to information and guidance. And we'll enforce the rules that really matter and not disproportionately enforcing minor infringements. These changes are vitally important, and if we don't change the way we work with farmers in these ways, nothing else we're doing is really going to work. Next slide, please, Becky. SFI pays farmers for taking actions that support food production, farm productivity and resilience whilst protecting and enhancing the environment. And so far, we've received over 14,000 applications. The SFI scheme has been expanded and made more flexible in response to farmers' feedback. Farmers can now stack multiple actions and co-locate actions. So by stacking, we mean do them on the same area of land subject to compatibility and double funding rules. And by co-locating, we mean do them on different areas of land within the land parcel. Farmers now have free choice over what combination of actions they choose. Actions are no longer grouped into standards and levels. Instead, they're all standalone pick and mix actions. You can enter as much land as you want and choose how many actions you do. And once you're in SFI, you can add more land and actions to your agreement each year. We introduced a new management scheme in 2023 to cover the admin costs of entering our schemes. This has helped a record number of small farmers to sign up. And at the NFU conference in February, we announced that we'll double the management payment for up to £2,000 in the first year of agreements entered into by March 25. This means that thousands of farmers that have applied for SFI will receive that top up this spring, and farmers on short-term rolling tenancy agreements can enter, provided they expect to have management control for 3 years. Next, please. So the next couple of slides will give you some information on the SFI actions that are now available to livestock and grassland farmers. As you can see here, you've got the hedgerow saws and integrated pest management actions. I won't be going into detail on these, but they may prove useful when we send the slides around after the event. And next slide, please. This next slide covers our actions for nutrient management, farm wildlife, buffer strips, low input grassland and moorland. Next, please. And the slide that's just coming up with species recovery management and covers actions to support rare native livestock breeds. We want to maintain and increase the number of rare native breeds grazing on farms, and we're improving the existing offer by updating the native breeds at risk supplement to make it more accessible, better suited to moorland, lowland heath and grassland habitats, and update the eligible breeds to reflect the latest population data. Next, please. So farmers who keep livestock and or have grassland on their farm will continue to produce sustainable food coupled with actions that also support our natural environment. So what's new, I hear you ask? So payment rates are increasing by an average of 10%. Historically, we've paid much higher prices for actions involving creating or restoring habitats and features and lower prices to maintain them. So we're rebalancing the payments for creation and maintenance actions, in particular for grassland habitats. So those who've already made changes are not disadvantaged. So for example, the price for maintaining species-rich grassland increased on the 1st of January from 182 to 646. Moving forward, we'll be paying for the cost of creating grassland habitat in full as a separate capital grant offer. In 24, we plan to introduce new support for endemic disease management, BVD in cattle, PRRS in pigs, and a broader sheep health approach for a range of endemic and disease conditions. We'll trial programs that provide financial support for farmers to improve stockmanship and adopt best practices in livestock husbandry. So what's been improved? Farmers can apply at a time which suits them for a free vet visit to keepers of pigs, sheep and cattle. Applications have recently been simplified and you no longer need to be currently claiming BPS to apply. Farmers should apply now to get a funded annual vet visit from their chosen vet or team of vets. And we'll continue to roll out this offer, widening it so that vet visits can cover multiple of herd and flocks. My colleague will be going into more detail later on in this pack. Next slide, please. Agroforestry is tree planting that is deliberately combined with agriculture on the same land. The agroforestry actions have been designed to appeal to the widest range of farmers and be applicable on the widest range of land possible to service our ambitious objective on agroforestry to deliver net zero, alongside wider biodiversity and environmental benefits. The lower tree density actions enable agroforestry to be done without requiring forestry environmental impact assessments, which makes agroforestry accessible to those that want to try this innovative approach and to tenant farmers. The higher tree density actions provide for those who want to maximise the benefits from agroforestry planting, including those already confident with implementing agroforestry practices. And existing capital items will continue to be available. In addition, we're looking to introduce new capital items to plan your in-field agroforestry system and plant in-field agroforestry trees. Next, please. So grassland covers a range of different land and types and habitats, and we're improving the existing offer by bringing together the management actions for existing, restored or created grassland habitats into one action for each habitat type with a higher payment rate. We're introducing new capital items to pay for the costs of restoring, creating, and for the seed mixes. We're offering simpler, accessible versions of these actions for farmers who want to manage existing grassland habitat, and bespoke versions for farmers who are restoring or creating, or on sites where actions need to be tailored more. Making the actions more flexible, for example, around when you can cut, top and graze while still achieving the desired outcome. Introducing new actions for managing species-rich floodplain meadows and managing scrapes and gutters. And introducing a new later cut version of the haymaking supplement, which will support later flowering plant species and will allow wading birds to nest successfully. Other existing capital items will continue to be available, so for example, to support the management of grassland habitat. Next, please. So lowland peat covers peat soils that are below the moorland line. The actions for lowland peat soil can store carbon, increase biodiversity by providing food and habitat for rare and endangered plants and wildlife with unique biodiversity, protect heritage assets and landscape character. We are improving the existing offer by increasing the payments to better reflect costs, making the existing actions more achievable, and introducing new actions for raising water levels to a lower depth below the field surface. Existing capital items will continue to be available, for example, to restore ditches, dikes and rines. In addition, we're looking to introduce new capital items for major preparatory works and water penning structures. Next, please. So at the NFU conference in February, we announced our largest grant offer ever, totaling £427 million in 2024. And currently you can apply for a number of different grants. Farmers can apply for 8 capital grants for environmental improvements through CS. These grants are open all year round. The Farming in Protective Landscapes programme offers funding for one-off projects to farmers and land managers in AOMBs, national parks and aboards, and this scheme will run until March 25. The Tree Health Pilot is open until August 24 and offers one-off grants to test different ways of slowing the spread of pests and diseases affecting trees in England. It expands on the support already available through the CS Woodland Tree Health Grant. The Animal Health and Welfare Pathway is a funded annual visit from your chosen vet or team of vets. It can be undertaken whenever it works for you, and it will allow you and your vet to concentrate on your animal's specific health and welfare priorities. The grant is open all year round and delivered through SFI. Through the Farming Investment Fund, we're investing in new technology, equipment and infrastructure. The scheme will pay for items to improve farm and horticultural productivity through the use of robotic and automated equipment and systems to aid crop and livestock production. For the first time, it will also fund the installation of solar equipment on barn roofs and irrigation reservoirs to increase energy resilience and the take-up of renewable energy generation on farm. Applications close the 21st of March. At the NFU conference, we announced a new £70 million round of the Successful Farm Equipment and Technology Fund, which provides grants for equipment and technology that support improvements in productivity, slurry management, and animal health and welfare. You can apply for one grant from each of the 3 schemes, and grants for productivity and slurry management items are available now. The deadline to apply is midday on the 17th of April. Grants for animal health and welfare items will be available later this month, so you need to keep an eye on our channels in the coming months for more information on the grants we will be publishing in 24. So I'm now going to hand over to Matthew, who's going to sort of share his experience of SFI with you.
Welcome, Matthew. I'll just stop sharing the screen for a moment so we can see your face, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
If I can remember how to do it. Right. Hopefully everyone could keep track of everything that was being posted in the chat as well. Rosie has been frantically sharing some guidance about the grants and actions that you can get funding for. Has my screen stopped sharing yet?
Yes.
Good. Welcome, Matthew.
Hiya. Do you want me to just rattle into it?
Yeah, just tell us a little bit about what you do, what you've applied for, what was your experience?
So we're an upland sort of livestock farm on, right on the top of Dartmoor. So we're, fairly upland focused, obviously. And all of our land would be permanent pasture. All of it would be, quite a lot of it would be rough sort of pasture land and going up to peatland right at the top and commons. We're currently involved on this farm in the SFI pilot on a block of land. We're also involved in SFI 23 on 2 different farms because we run 2 businesses. I've got a CS mid-tier agreement. I've got a HLS agreement, which has just rolled over on one of the farms as well. And I've also got a HLS agreement on the common. I've also got 5 other commons which we graze, which have no agreement, have never been in agreement. And those sadly have never fitted the criteria from Natural England. We're hoping now with landscape recovery and a different approach with the Dartmoor review that potentially those commons will now fit the criteria with the public goods. As you can imagine, we're farming a fair area. We're farming about sort of 800 hectares of enclosed land and 6 commons. So that's sort of quite a lot of area. So we're a reasonable scale upland hill farm, really. We're, as I say, at the moment we're based around like grassland options, and we've gone for. If I'm perfectly honest, I went straight in November and got in with the low-hanging fruit and picked grass. So low input grassland on everything on the farm. I thought that's fair enough. I wasn't confident enough to go for the species-rich grassland, or the Kerbal lay options. Although I've been informed subsequently that a lot of our fields would fit that criteria anyway, because those sort of plants are already there. But I just wanted to know more before I did that. So I was happy to take, the 151 per hectare and just put it in the bank. Going forward, obviously, in the review window, I might see how people are getting on this sort of coming year. Looking into SFI 24, it's good to see more options that will be attractive to the uplands. I feel like the uplands have been left behind a little bit. Our incomes have been dropping quite significantly, with a backdrop of HLSs being under scrutiny from Natural England. So it's nice to see more options coming available. I still think there's a lot of work to do there. I think there's more to come. And when we're fully aware of what's coming in 24, I think that will become a lot more attractive, or that's my hope anyway. We're also tenants on a large portion of the farm, so we're also conscious that we've got a landscape recovery bid in our area. What the landlord might, they're doing natural capital audits already on the farm, so we're conscious that they're going to want their pound of flesh out of us as well. And I know that is quite a big concern. I think how we can sort of move on and how we can make it better, I would say there needs to be more grassland options, or at least pastures like ours, which are sort of permanent pasture, improved permanent pasture, I suppose you'd call it. We cut it, it's our winter feed, most of these fields. So I wouldn't call it sort of old pasture, but I still think it's got quite a value. I wouldn't want to plough it to put a crop in it or put a herbal lay in it, because I'd worry about disturbing it, and the amount of rainfall we get would concern me. So I think that should be achieving a higher value than it is at the moment. And whether that's in the suite of options, I don't know. There's a hell of a lot of disparity between 800 and something per hectare down to 151. I don't see there's that much difference in value in those sort of practices. It's good to see on the CS on the last lot to see cattle grazing being rewarded. I think there's an opportunity for mixed stocking to come in. You know, we're keeping sheep, cattle, and ponies. Ponies generally are on the commons, only on a small scale. But I think those sort of traditional practices should be rewarded. And you know, I think that's a way of ensuring tenants, especially, have got a handle on what they can do. Otherwise, you know, the landowners could the balance could tip in their favour, and they may have the whip hand. It will be also interesting to hear. It's great to see a native breed payment, but I want to see the list and what is and what's involved in proving I've got those animals. Because I think that will be the difficulty. You know, there's a lot of traditional native breeds that graze our uplands. Will they be on the list? Because they're popular breeds. So, you know, would they achieve? So that list is the key for me. But I'm glad to see it's there. More importantly for us on the commons, it's the fact that they're hefted animals or lead to the hill that is more important than the actual breed they are. That is an important factor there. I picked up on the agroforestry as well. I've sort of been debating. We've been being encouraged by the landlord to go into you know, forestry options, so wooded pasture type options. On our home farm, we've got most of our fields will be below 1.5 hectares. We've got sort of Devon, you know, stone-faced banks with trees on top. If I start planting trees in those fields, it's not going to be viable for me because I can't cut my hay crop or whatever. Why isn't there, I think, a good option that would be available for our sort of upland hill farms or small field systems to actually understand that you can't really plant a group of trees in the middle of our fields. So if you've got trees on the hedges, why can't we access that sort of big money on that? Because that money seems to be advantage to the big estates with the big, you know, with 100-acre fields. You know, we haven't got that. We've got maybe 4 or 5 acre fields. That's our biggest. So I think there's some work to do there, and understanding, especially in the uplands where these traditional field systems still exist, to actually reward that. And I think, you know, through the woodland options, because effectively we're doing the same thing. We've got lots of trees, but they just aren't in the field; they're on the hedge. So I think that would be a welcome change.
Matthew, I'm just going to jump in just because I'm conscious of time, but you've got so much to share. We probably needed more time.
Well, I don't know how long I had, so I'm just
it's all right, don't worry.
My list, if you like.
You have reminded me that we will be doing a webinar specifically on uplands in a couple of weeks, which we can share a link to sign up to if anyone is interested. And I think everything that you've talked about and the points that you're raising are really important for us to hear, and for everyone else to have a think about as well. Just quickly before we move on to our animal health and welfare section, how was your experience with the agreement and payments when you applied? How quickly was the turnaround for your SFI?
So our SFI, we went straight in. I think I got in, I think it was late November, and I had an introductory payment in December. So it was fairly quick.
Yeah.
Which was great at the time, albeit it was beginning of December. So I'd already had my BPS and my HLS payment, because that always arrives then as well. But obviously now I've had to wait 6 months before I get my next payment. So that, you know, I appreciate you can't have it twice, but actually I'm not sure whether that was beneficial or not. But having the quarterly payment is great, because you can manage your cash flow so much easier. You know, the spike we used to get, you know, all our HLS and all our BPS in December, and it was crazy because you felt flush for a couple of months, and then it was all gone, and you were lean for the rest of the year. So that never helped.
And I think the increase in the management payment should be filtering through hopefully soon as well. So that's £40 a hectare for the first year, I think, isn't it? And then £20 a hectare for the second and third year.
Yeah, it's you know, again, it's very difficult because there's so many options at the moment that, you know, the list of, you know, either SFI, CS, LR, and then you know, the previous speaker mentioned all the other pots of funding that are out there. It's actually quite a minefield. You know, if you're that way inclined, then great. But a lot of farmers aren't, you know, they're aware there's lots out there, but actually navigating through those different pots is quite difficult. Because you're not sure, you know, are you dual funding some stuff? Are you, you know, where do I go for the right thing? And some very often we're just too busy to get to it, and it may be a lot maybe missed, which is unfortunate.
I'm going to have to leave for now, Matthew, but are you okay to hold on, because I'm sure everyone will have lots of questions at the end of this webinar that might be aimed at you and your experience. So thank you very much for sharing that. I'll move on to Jimmy, who's going to cover our animal health and welfare pathway, and we'll get on to our Q&A and ask your questions.
Thanks, Becky, and thanks, Matthew, and good morning, all. So I'm going to cover the pathway and what the pathway has to offer for you. And could we have the next slide, please? So the pathway is a joint partnership with industry, as neither of us can do this alone. It was initiated by the industry, whose representatives are still involved in its development. So we have 150 vets, farmers, and other industry representatives to working with us on this. And our primary aim is healthier, higher welfare livestock across our farms. Outcomes will be further reaching than this and will include increased productivity, reduced use of antibiotics, and risk of zoonotics. They help to deliver net zero targets and improve confidence in buying pretties across the globe. Next one, please. So as a part of this process, we determined a set of health and welfare priorities for each sector in the pathway through co-design with industry, vets, and non-government organizations and welfare scientists. And whilst we reach, it's important to note that whilst we reach the collective agreement on most of the priorities, some represent compromises between different stakeholder views. And I will cut this a little bit as we are a bit short of time. I want to give some more questions. So next slide, please. So today, I'm going to concentrate on the pathway's financial offer, what is out there and what will come next. Of course, the pathway is about more than just financial assistance. It consists of 3 mutually reinforcing strands, which will support livestock farmers financially, stimulate market demand for higher welfare products, and strengthen the regulatory baseline. So in short, our 4 programs are annual health and welfare review, also known as vet visits, animal health and welfare grants, both small and large, disease eradication and control programs, and payment by results, also known as supporting stockmanship. And next one, please. So the review is the first step in reducing the endemic disease, improving the welfare of animals, and increasing productivity and ensuring the appropriate use of medicines and vaccines. And first thing to emphasize is that the review is flexible. It's about the farm improvements, agreed actions between you and the farmer, and you could include some easy wins and some more ambitious targets. And it's to provide time for the farmer and their trusted vet to discuss issues on that specific farm. The funding will cover an annual visit from a vet of the farmer's choice to consider the health and welfare of the animals. And as I said, the visit is designed to be flexible, and the bulk of the visits can be used to focus on whatever priorities matter most to you, and can include any area of health and welfare on your farm. And I want to stress that this is not an inspection, and the information collected from the review will not be used to trigger any RPA or AFA inspections. And when we launched the review last year, we said that we would continue to improve it over time with feedback from the farmers and vets. So we have simplified the application process, and it should be really simple now. One farmer said that it did it before his kettle had boiled. We aligned the BVD testing for beef with checks and BVD-free requirements. We clarified how to use the review to enable export to the EU. We got rid of the expression of interest in the process when applying, and now non-BPS claimants can apply for the annual health and welfare review. And most recently, to provide more flexibility, we are now offering agreements holders who have not made and will not make the claim under the agreement the ability to apply again as soon as the agreement expires, waiving the 10-month wait requirement. And in the coming months, we will continue to iterate the service, which includes introducing multiple reviews for multiple herds, flocks, and species, and the collection of limited and anonymized information from the farmer to build a national picture of disease prevalence, etc. The review is for cattle, sheep, and big farmers who have 11 or more cattle, 21 or more sheep, 51 or more pigs, and the scheme will be funded for 3 years. And this table here sets out what we will be testing under the review for each species. Together with our co-design groups, have big BVD, PRRS, and worming as a priorities, as they are collectively costing the industry over 120 million per annum. And the payment rates are fixed, and we have refined and have been refined in collaboration with industry based upon the priority testing required. The payments will go to the farmer, covering their commitment, vet time, and diagnostic testing. And variation in payment rates between species is due difference in the prior disease testing costs. And there is lots more information available on the testing on the AHDB side and DEFRA side. Next slide, please. And I think I mainly covered this. I think I would take from this one that this review is not a tick box exercise. So it is flexible, and it's there to serve you. And we can move to the next one, Becky. Thank you. So the key steps for the review are as in the slide. So the farmer applies, completes a short online application, confirms the number of animals, CPHs for business, and commits to completing the review within 6 months. Then they are issued an agreement number, and all they need for this is their Rural Payments Agency customer reference number and password. And it, as I said, it probably takes under 3 minutes. Then the vet visits the farm and the vet tests for priority endemic diseases and conditions, and discuss and agree areas of focus for the health and welfare. Vet and farmer agree the most relevant actions for the individual farm. and this anticipated that the steps 2 and 3 will take between 2 or 3 hours, and 3 hours for the vet and farmer's time. And then the vet writes the report. Vet says the written report with the disease testing results and summary of relevant actions alongside recommended follow-up actions for the farmers. And it's worth to note that from December last year, livestock products that end up in the food chain in which may be exported to the European Union need proof for the annual vet visit. Vet will, when asked, add the unique vet attestation number known as VAN to their report. And then farmer claims funding. Vet invoices the farmer and provides a short summary of the report, and farmer submits the invoice and summary of the report to claim the funding. Next one, please. Becky, if you don't mind to move to the next one. Sorry.
Sorry, it has moved from my side, Jimmy.
Oh, right. Okay, mine might have frozen then.
It worked.
Yes, thank. Oh, sorry. I think if you go back one on the disease control. So once you had your animal health and welfare review, you will know the BVD and PER status on your flock and or herd from summer 2024. So this summer, you will be able to apply for the disease control and eradication program. The program is in steps, like the review, and will offer sequencing for PERS and PI hunt for BVD. SEEP is slightly different and will give farmers a choice of 6 different areas to focus on, including areas such as lameness, lamb performance, and survival rates. The approach is farmer-led and designed to be complementary to existing work that farmers are doing, for example, flock health planning. Participating in the scheme will allow farmers to identify endemic diseases within their flock and gain or herd and gain advice on how to control and treat these diseases. This will help to reduce the level of disease within flocks and herds and therefore increase productivity and profits. It will also help the farmers to prepare for future trade and more stringent export requirements. And now, Becky, if we move to the grants. Thank you. So regarding the grants, 2 different grants will be offered through the animal health and welfare pathway: the equipment and technology grant and infrastructure grant. We work closely with farmers, academics, and industry groups to compile the list of items with focus on the pathway priorities. The list will be kept under the review between rounds and iterated each year to ensure that the offer remains current and continues to offer the best value for taxpayers' money. The guidance for the next round of the farming equipment and technology grants is now available on gov.uk, and this includes funding towards the cost of list of the items that improve the health and welfare, and is available to farmers in the beef, dairy, laying chicken, broiler, and sheep sectors. And watch the space as we are opening the grant window very shortly. Next one, please. In terms of large grants, the first infrastructure grant, calf housing for health and welfare, launched late last year to support farmers to build new and upgraded existing calf housing. And this year, we will be offering grants for cattle keepers for adult for adult cattle and calf housing, and to poultry farmers to upgrade their housing, which can mean refreshing their existing building or new housing. In the future, they intend to offer grants for big farmers to invest on upgrades on housing. And the last one on the pathway, please. We've been talking about payment by results, but we are shifting the talking about this as more about supporting stockmanship. This will be an ongoing financial support to aid farmers with additional cost of higher welfare production exceeding the regulatory baseline. And the initial plan is to launch 2 offers, intact pigtails, a 2-year trial incorporating both action-based and result-based payments to support farmers to take actions to reduce stresses, thereby reducing the incidence of tail biting, and so making more viable to move away from tail docking. And also improved cattle pain management. It is supporting to enable vet-led training for farmers of pain management, best practice during disbudding and castration, with follow-up payments to reward farmers who put this into practice. And following the trials of the initial offers, we expect to develop additional offers to other sectors. I think that was all about the pathway. Thank you, Becky.
Thanks, Jimmy. And there's a quick question, I think, in the chat for you, if you can answer, about when the animal health portion of the FETF round will be launched. Is that in March? Do we know?
It will. I can never be completely sure, but I can promise that it will be in a week or 2.
Okay, thanks, Jimmy. Right, I want to get onto the Q&A really quick, and we'll probably stay on a little bit longer than 12 o'clock if everyone wants to stay on a little bit longer, because I know we've got plenty of questions to get through. The most important messages to remind you of is that you can hopefully find a package that works for you. And for more support, there is the Farm Resilience Fund, and the catchment sensitive farming advisors provide free advice as well. There's a few QR codes there. If you hover your phone over those at the moment, it'll take you to either the blog or our SFI campaign page. But I will stop sharing my screen and we'll move on to the Q&A. Okay, so first question. I think this is more of a comment, and we have heard this before, and I think you raised it as well, Matthew, about needing urgent information for higher level stewardship agreements. Some people rolled over but want to know if they can move into SFI without penalty. Now, I know this is something that we will be clarifying in the coming weeks and months when the full guidance for the new actions are available. It should clarify how agreement holders can transition between agreements. Is there anyone who wants to come in on that question and add to that?
I think the only thing that I would add is, you know, if you land and you are eligible to apply for SFI and you've got a compatible option that isn't going to mean you'd have some double funding, you can apply for SFI now.
Thanks, Joanne. I think the person who's asked that really wants some assurance that they won't suffer any penalty if they transition between schemes, and I know that's.
I've actually asked that question of our HS agreement, and it's my understanding that there'll be no penalty. There is a worry that there'll be a delay in the payment windows, so you'll miss that cash flow. So, but I think I'm assured again with that won't happen. You know, just before that, like Commons and SFI at the moment, they're not the MOR1. There's still a lot of Commons who can't access that because I don't know, the map's not working or something's going on there. So I would just put a flag in that and say, please sort that out, really.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. Our intention isn't to disadvantage anyone or to penalise anyone. So once the full guidance is out, the RPA will be able to clarify how you can transition between schemes without penalty, if it's possible, and if yeah, we should find out more about that in the coming weeks. Next question. Will grassland need to be mapped as species rich to be eligible for species rich grassland management options? So this is about mapping as well. Would one of our RPA colleagues be able to share anything about that question?
I'm not sure, but I'm happy to take that away, and sort of if we can update on that after this call, would that be okay?
Yeah, of course, Joanne. We'll star that question.
Thank you.
And we'll make sure we address it in our follow-up blog. There will be some questions we can't answer today, but we'll endeavour to answer as many as we can. The next question is, will Natural England need to assess eligibility for actions, as has previously been the case for CS and HLS? Andrea, were you going to come in on this one?
No, I was just going to come in on the previous one, saying we will be publishing more detail about the species rich and eligibility requirements, how people can get in soon, I think. Yeah. So it'll have all the information there that you need.
Fab. Thanks, Andrea. Lee, were you going to come in on the Natural England question?
Yeah, I can do. So not to arc back, but obviously for those who are familiar with CS, we currently have mid-tier and higher tier. So the mid-tiers generally don't require any advice, say from Natural England advisors or Forestry Commission advisors. And obviously we're moving away from CS as was, but the expanded offer in 24 will work in a similar way. So again, a number of the actions will not require Natural England or FC colleagues to provide advice, but again, there will be some similar to how higher tier works in CS currently.
Thanks, Lee. I think where agreements are a bit more complex, they will need that.
Similar again for those again on CS, and for those with ELS and HLS, it will work in a similar way. Yeah, the more complex, more bespoke options will require that advice.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. I think this one is for you, Jimmy. Why are we only funding one species in the Animal Health and Welfare Review at the moment? Is this down to funding? I'll let you come in on that, Jimmy.
Thanks, Becky. So I think this is a completely new way of working with farmers, and I think we want to get this right. And therefore, we started the review quite slow. We reiterated. We worked with you and your peers very closely to ensure that we get it right. And I think the same thing goes with adding multiple species in the review. It means that there is still some co-design to do how we manage that, and it will come. So it's not really about funding; it's more about getting it right. And we will start with the endemics program, and then we are currently already working, or have been working for a while, with getting multiple species and multiple herds and flocks to the system.
Thanks, Jimmy. And I would encourage everyone to subscribe to our farming blog. I think Rosie may have put a link in the chat, or will put a link in the chat. Any updates? So if Jimmy's team do offer it to multiple species at some point, that will be on the blog, and you'll get an update as soon as that happens. So please subscribe. Matthew, I didn't ask before, but have you applied for the funded vet visit? No pressure if you haven't. I'm just curious.
No, we haven't. To be honest, I've briefly spoke to my vet the other day when we were TB testing about it, but we've just been too busy. I'll be perfectly honest. We're very extensive with our livestock, suckler cows, so we're not, and we haven't really got any welfare problems we're worried about. So at this point in time, no, but I think there's definitely mileage in it, and it's good that it's there. You know, the cynic in me maybe thinks, well, the vet's the only one's going to make money out of this, but that's maybe my cynical hat on.
Jimmy, do you want to come back on that?
Well, I'm glad you are interested. I think I just spoke with one dairy farmer who said that, and I know for a fact they have very high welfare, as most of the farmers have very high welfare. So I think what we try to do with this review is to make it as flexible as possible, so you can concentrate. There is always something, I'm sure, to kind of look into and maybe find some improvements. So it can be almost anything. And I think, but I do understand that you are incredibly busy to get the food to our tables. So but I would encourage everyone to look, because there should be something for everyone.
I did welcome the potential for sort of new cattle housing to be funded on the last sort of group of slides, because I think that is something that could be really beneficial in places with really high rainfall in the uplands. It maybe needs to be backed up by speaking to the national parks to get the planning for those improved facilities. You know, we're expecting to keep these cows off the moor during the winter. We need someone to put them.
Yeah, that is good, and I just want to reiterate that it's not just new. It's you can upgrade the older ones, because I think that was, remember from the last round that we had, people didn't they thought that it always has to be new, so it can also be upgrading. And somebody asked in the chat when this is coming, so it will come later in the year. And as Becky said, do follow the blog. It will be announced there.
Thanks both. We'll just move on to the next question, because I know Andrea, our SFI policy colleague, will be having to leave in a few minutes. So I want to make sure we get some answers from you, Andrea, before you do. I know you've mentioned you can maybe answer the question about whether triple SI consent is required from MOR1.
Yep. So a consent is not required to complete the moorland assessment, but we do say that owner-occupiers should, of course, still apply for consent to Natural England for any activity associated with the carrying out of the assessment, which is on the ORNAC list for the site. So e.g. the use of vehicles, and this will be considered as part of the normal consenting process, but the actual assessment itself does not require consent.
Thanks, Andrea. And I think we'll come to the question. Someone was really organised and put this question on before the webinar, and it was around if someone committed to, say, LIG1 low input, but now have options for species rich or flooding, can they request a swap of the option, or do they have to continue with it for that 3 years of the agreement? And we discussed this a bit, didn't we, before the webinar started?
Yeah, I think that's one we're going to sort of have to take away and look into, because I've not had anybody ask about swapping. We do have it set up so you can add other actions to your offer at your annual update, or if you're doing rotational actions, you can actually change the amount of land you put into it rotationally, as long as you don't go below 50%. But it's the first time I've been asked about an actual swap. So I have been furiously trying to find out behind the scenes while you've all been talking. I've not been able to come up with an answer just yet. So we will take that one away and come back to you.
Yeah, I think the important thing to remember is that an SFI agreement is for 3 years, but at the annual review point, there is flexibility to maybe do something a bit more ambitious. But whether it's a complete swap of an action.
Yeah, that's what I'm not quite sure on. So we'll have to take that one away. So sorry, I just haven't been able to get anybody to help me with that one.
It's all right, don't worry. Are there any other questions you'd like to cover before you have to leave, Andrea?
I can briefly sort of broadly answer, I think, the one about UX2 options and LIG1 on them. So in principle, you and your land are eligible for each scheme of the funding source. So you can technically apply for ES schemes and SFI on the same parcel land. It all comes down to whether the actual actions are compatible. So yeah, RPA are correct in saying that the land types could be compatible, but it might be the reason we've said in the handbook, no, you can't, is because there's a conflict with the actions. I don't know enough about UX2 to see whether it conflicts with Lig 1 or 2 specifically, but that would be the rationale behind it, whether there'd be a double funding payments and already paying for similar actions, or whether there's actually a conflict in the actions. So we can try and look a bit more detail about those two scenarios, but broadly, yes, you could apply for something the same, both options on the same parcel of land. It would just have to be without double funding issues or action compatibility.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Andrea.
If that's any clearer.
I think the important thing to remember is that there will be more guidance available soon, won't there, that will clarify most of the questions we maybe not we haven't been able to answer. So the next question is about when in the summer will the new combined SFI-ICS offer become available. We have committed that will open in the summer. So guidance in May, and hopefully the applications will go live in July. So we've covered that. So please keep an eye out for those updates. Andrea, before you go, can you say anything about how species-rich grassland will be assessed at all?
I was wondering if this was referring to the simpler question you had earlier about, as in eligibility as a regard, because like currently I think under GS6 it has to be mapped on the priority habitat inventory, and so I think we've already said we're going to just have to take that one away and confirm, but we are going to be publishing more detail later on this year. We give specifics on eligibility, but unless you meant something different by assessed, but that's what I took that one to be.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to come in on any of those? I saw Paul's hand up a moment ago, but I can move on if not.
My hand was up for another, because there's a question a little bit lower down about including abattoirs in the slurry grant, and that's one I think if you star that one, I'll take that one away to come back to you on that one.
Thanks, Paul. There are quite a few questions about animal health and welfare, so I might have to come back to you, Jimmy, if that's okay. Have you got a few more minutes?
I could briefly just quickly go through the one on agroforestry that you've got there.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Sort of, as I covered in the sort of slides, we've tried to present an agroforestry offer that's available to the widest possible offers. So there will be lower density actions on agroforestry that don't require the environmental impact assessments that will sit with certain sort of SFI options. We will be publishing again the detail of which ones those specifically fit for. I'm not the agroforestry lead, so I do apologise, but I do know we've tried to make agroforestry accessible across all sort of offers, including the SFI ones, so that they can sort of get used to it and build it into it, but there'll be the lower density agroforestry options.
Thank you. Matthew, did you want to come in?
But I'm going to have to shoot off now, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, can I just before Andrea goes, can I just to put a flag in that agroforestry comment that I made earlier about really small field systems with hedges around them. You know, that I think they should be considered for some of those options, because they would have as many trees as some of the agroforestry options.
Well, we pay separately for the hedgerow trees in the hedgerow tree offer, so you'd need to keep those trees separate from the agroforestry system, because you potentially could be being paid to manage your existing trees in hedgerows already.
Yes, but what I've got, so you've got 1 hectare of our hedgerows equals 3.7 kilometres of sort of birdseed mix options. So I don't think those hedges are being valued enough. That's what I'm saying. I don't mind where the money comes from, but it's just not enough. There's not enough value in those hedgerows yet.
We'll take that away. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you for that.
I've just answered another question about hedgerows in the chat, which was, what's the deadline to apply for hedgerow, specifically HRW2? There is no deadline. So with SFI, it's a rolling application window. So you can apply at any time. So please do, if you're interested. Jimmy, do you want to cover some of the animal health and welfare questions?
Yeah. So I
the
think
next one is about the animal welfare grants that are available. Is the minimum grant too high for smaller family farms, or have we reviewed that?
I think we reviewed that and we came down and we keep on it under the review. I think the reason that it is where it is at the moment is that the administrative burden comes too high and is starting to kind of affect the value for money for taxpayers. So that's why it is where it is. But I think we obviously will be keeping it under review because this is not the first comment we hear about this.
Thanks, Jimmy. I think we covered this in the slides, but when will the farming productivity grant for adult cattle housing become available? I think we had a round of that, didn't we? Is there another one coming?
Yes, so there is another one coming, but it will be later in this year. And I would, as you said earlier, encourage people to subscribe to the farming blog because they will get the notifications when these are coming, and it will work in the same way that you will get first the guidance that you have time to look at it before the window will open for grants. And what I should note here is that with all the grants, especially on the infrastructure grants, you will score more points when you have had the discussion with your vet.
Thanks, Jimmy. I'm just going to cover a question. There's one about why should farmers have to pay for a fax or basis advisor for the fax one is for the fertilizer management plan and the basis one is for the IPM plan. So if you already have a fax advisor or a basis advisor, you don't have to sort of pay them again to complete the action. If you're already doing that through farm assurance schemes, then you can use those towards it. Paul, did you want to come in?
Yeah, again, I think this is more about I see in the comments here, Tony's put something in about sharing out for the blog because it's describing it as an excellent thing to look at. So I know we put the link in earlier in the chat, but it is really well worth keeping your eye. Have that blog, look at it because you'll know when those grants come forward and when to apply. Get that guidance, as Jimmy said before, things happen, so you can read through and be ready rather than think, oh, did I miss the grant? The blog is the way not to miss.
Yeah, and not just grants, but anything else that's
Yep. Sure.
Right, I'm just going to pop. I know we're running over time a little bit now, so if you are still online, there's a quick closing survey to tell us how you think this event went. I think what I've certainly learned is we probably need a bit more time, which I'll try and make sure we do for the next series of our sector-specific webinars. I will do one more question, I think, Jimmy, before we sign off. And it's about the Animal Health and Welfare Review. It appears that pigs that have been weaned and have been moved to B&B sites to be grown are unable to get a vet visit at the B&B site. Is that? Are you aware of that, or is it something we want to look into?
Yes, we are aware of that and of that particular issue, and we are working with the stakeholders to find solution to that issue. And the same goes. There is a little bit later a similar thing about sheep being overwintered, and that covers that question as well. So we are also aware about that, and we are working on it.
And is there anything else you want to just quickly cover before we end the session, Jimmy, and anyone else? If there's any more we want to mention or leave people thinking about?
I can cover the question on the poultry that is somewhere on the line. So the pathway is currently focused on pigs, dairy cows, beef cattle, laying chickens, broilers, and sheep, and therefore this year we can only accept applications for items from the livestock farmers on these. these species. But DEFRA will continue to work in partnership with the industry to develop the pathway as I said before, and we are hoping to expand the offer to new species such as goats and other types of poultry in the future. But at the moment, unfortunately, it is just for the ones that I listed before.
Thanks, Jimmy. Right, I think we will have to leave it there. Thank you very much for everyone that's contributed. And Matthew, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and thoughts. Hopefully we might see you again at a future webinar, and I'll give you a bit more time. I think the important messages to take away are you can apply now for the current actions. There's no deadline for applications. It's quarterly payments, and you can apply for your fully funded vet visit now. And there is a list of equipment and grants that will be available or are already available. So please take a look at the blog. Everything is on there that can help you navigate what you might want to decide to do. I'll leave it there. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for everyone that supported in the Q&A as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.